The stars were dying, and Captain could only watch. From the bridge of the warship Horizon's End, he stared at the view screen showing what remained of the system. 3 days ago, it had been home to billions of people across 4 planets. Now there was only darkness, not the normal black of space, but something worse, a void that seemed to eat light itself. "Captain, the swarm is spreading faster," said Lieutenant Park from his station. The young officer's voice was steady, but could hear the fear beneath it. Everyone was afraid these days. Fear had become as common as breathing. Nodded slowly. He had seen this happen 17 times now. 17 star systems consumed by the thing they called the Void Swarm. The pattern was always the same. First, the outer planets would go dark, then the inner worlds. Finally, the star itself would flicker and die, pulled into the hungry darkness. Nothing survived. No ships, no escape pods, no final transmissions, just silence. "Set course for Coalition headquarters," said. "There's nothing more we can do here." Behind him, the door to the bridge opened. Doctor walked in, carrying a data pad and looking like she hadn't slept in days. She probably hadn't. The scientist had been obsessed with finding an answer to the swarm since it first appeared 6 months ago. "Captain, I need 5 minutes of your time," said. "I found something." Wanted to say no. He wanted to tell her that he had heard a dozen theories and none of them had helped, but something in her eyes made him pause. There was excitement there, mixed with fear. Real fear, not the numbing terror everyone felt watching worlds die. "Make it quick," he said. Moved to the main display and pulled up images of ancient ruins. Recognized them from old survey reports. They were precursor sites, ruins left behind by a civilization that had died 3 billion years ago. Most people thought studying dead aliens was a waste of time when living aliens were being killed by the swarm. "I've been studying precursor texts for years," began. "Most of it is impossible to translate. But 3 weeks ago, I found a reference that kept repeating in their final records. They called it the Keeper of Thresholds." "A myth," said Wu, the ship's engineer from his station. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about cosmic spirits. Nice bedtime tales, but not real." "That's what I thought too," said. "But look at this." She pulled up more images, showing the same symbols carved into ruins on different worlds, light years apart. The precursors were describing something that exists outside normal space and time. According to their records, this entity stopped a threat exactly like our Void Swarm. 3 billion years ago, something was consuming the galaxy. The Keeper helped them stop it. Studied the symbols. They meant nothing to him, just ancient scratches in stone, but had never been wrong before. Her work had saved lives more than once. "Where is this Keeper?" he asked. "The dead sector," said quietly. The bridge went silent. The dead sector was a region of space where ships disappeared and reality itself seemed to break down. Sensors didn't work there. Clocks ran backward or stopped completely. The Coalition had declared it off limits decades ago after losing 3 exploration vessels without a trace. "You want us to fly into that?" Wu asked. "That's suicide." "We're all dying anyway," replied. Her voice was calm, matter of fact. "The Void Swarm has consumed 1/3 of the galaxy. At its current rate, it will reach Earth in 4 months. The Coalition loses every battle we fight. This is our only chance." Looked at his crew. They were all young, younger than he had been when he started commanding ships. They deserved better than to die in some cosmic horror show, but was right. They were out of options. "I'll speak to Coalition Command," said. "No promises." 2 days later, stood in the Coalition Council chamber, a massive room filled with representatives from 17 species. Most of them looked exhausted. War did that to everyone, regardless of how many legs or eyes they had. Ambassador, the human diplomat, presented findings to the council. She spoke with passion, showing the precursor evidence and explaining why the dead sector might hold their salvation. Watched the alien faces around the room. Some looked interested. Most looked doubtful. "This is mythology," said one of the council members, a tall being from the system. "We need real weapons, real strategies, not ancient ghost stories." "We have tried real weapons," shot back. "We have tried every strategy our best military minds could devise. Nothing works. The swarm keeps coming and we keep dying. At least let us try this." The debate went on for hours. In the end, the council refused to authorize an official mission, but they also said they wouldn't stop anyone who wanted to go. It was their way of saying the mission was hopeless, but they were desperate enough to allow it anyway. That evening, gathered his crew in the ship's common room. He explained the mission, the risks, and the almost certain chance they would never return. Then he gave them all a choice. Anyone who wanted to transfer off the ship could do so with no questions asked. Nobody moved. "We're with you," Captain said, and the others nodded. Song, the ship's medic, stepped forward. She was one of the rare humans born with psionic abilities, able to sense emotions and sometimes catch glimpses of the future. "I can feel something out there," she said softly. "Something old and sad, but also hopeful. I think Doctor is right." 3 days later, the Horizon's End departed from Coalition space. They flew toward the dead sector, toward a region where the laws of physics broke down and reality became uncertain. Behind them, the war continued. Ahead of them waited darkness and mystery. Sat in his command chair and watched the stars pass by. Somewhere out there was an ancient entity that might be able to save them all, or might be another dead end in a galaxy full of death. Either way, they would find out soon enough. The journey took 2 weeks. As they approached the dead sector, strange things began to happen. Clocks on the ship started running at different speeds. Crew members reported seeing things that weren't there, brief glimpses of people they knew were dead or planets that had already been destroyed. Wu worked constantly to keep the ship systems functioning as space itself seemed to resist their presence. On the 14th day, their sensors detected something impossible. A structure the size of a small moon, floating in a pocket of stable space. It was perfectly spherical, made of a crystalline material that reflected light from stars that had died eons ago. "That's it," whispered, staring at the screen. "The Keeper's domain." Gave the order to approach. As the Horizon's End moved closer to the ancient station, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, not by cameras or sensors, but by something far older and stranger. Something that had been waiting for them. Something that knew exactly why they had come, and what price they would have to pay. An ancient entity grants the key to save the galaxy, but it costs a soul. Part 2. The docking procedure should have been simple, but nothing about the ancient station was simple. Wu stared at his engineering console with growing confusion. The station had no visible docking ports, no airlocks, no way for a ship to connect. Yet somehow, when the Horizon's End got close enough, part of the crystalline surface simply opened. Not like a door, but like water parting around a stone. "That's not possible," Wu muttered. "Add it to the list," Captain replied. The ship slid into the opening and found itself in a vast hangar. The walls glowed with soft light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. As soon as they were inside, the opening sealed behind them. Wu checked the air outside. It was breathable. The temperature was perfect. Gravity matched Earth normal. "It's like it knew we were coming," said Lieutenant Park. Doctor was already at the airlock, suited up and ready to explore. "It probably did," she said. "The precursors described the Keeper as something that exists outside normal time. Past, present, and future might all be the same to it." Organized the crew into 2 teams. He would lead one with to find the station's core, would lead the other to map the surrounding areas and look for anything useful. Song, the medic with psionic abilities, would go with team. Her special senses might help them understand this place. They stepped off the ship and into a corridor that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were covered in symbols and images from thousands of different civilizations. Recognized a few, species that were part of the coalition, but most were completely unknown. "These are all extinct," said, running her hand along the wall. "Every species shown here is dead. This is a memorial." "Cheerful," Wu commented from the second team's comm channel. As they walked deeper into the station, time began to behave strangely. Sometimes they would take a step and find themselves hundreds of meters further along. Other times, they walked for what felt like hours, but their chronometers showed only minutes had passed. Kept pausing, her eyes distant. "I can feel them," she said quietly. "All the people who died. Their fear, their hope, their last moments. It's like the station recorded everything." His team made their own discoveries. In one massive chamber, they found monuments carved from materials that shouldn't exist. Each monument represented a different civilization's last stand against forces like the Void Swarm. The monuments were beautiful and terrible, showing the final moments of billions of beings. At the base of one monument, found something that made his blood run cold. It was a human symbol, carved in the same style as all the others. But humanity had only been in space for a few centuries. They shouldn't have a monument here yet. Captain called over the comm, "You need to see this." But his team had made their own discovery. They had reached the core of the station, a spherical chamber where the walls, floor, and ceiling were transparent. They seemed to be floating in normal space, surrounded by stars, except the stars kept changing, watched as constellations formed, aged, and died in seconds. "We're seeing all of time at once," breathed. "Every moment, every possibility." In the center of the chamber stood a figure. It looked human at first, but as watched, it shifted. Sometimes it was an alien from one of the coalition species. Sometimes it was something he had never seen before. The figure seemed to change based on who was looking at it. When focused on it, the figure became clearer. It took the shape of a young girl, maybe 7 years old. She had his daughter's face. His daughter who had died when the swarm consumed the outer colonies. "Hello," the figure said in his daughter's voice. Felt his throat tighten. He knew this wasn't really his daughter. It was something else, something wearing a shape that would make him listen, but knowing that didn't make it hurt any less. Stepped forward. To her, the figure looked like her old mentor, a woman who had taught her everything about archaeology before dying in one of the first swarm attacks. "You're the keeper of thresholds," said. It wasn't a question. "I am," the figure replied. Now its voice was neutral, belonging to no one and everyone. "I have waited for you. I have always been waiting for you." "Can you stop the Void Swarm?" asked, forcing himself to focus on the mission. "I can give you the means to stop it," the keeper said. "The swarm is a quantum anomaly, a tear in the fabric of space that consumes matter and energy, but it can be reversed. I possess the knowledge to create a weapon that will heal the damage and restore what has been taken." Hope surged through. After months of losing, of watching worlds die, finally there was a chance. "What do you need from us?" The keeper's form flickered. For a moment it looked infinitely sad. "The weapon requires power beyond your technology. It needs something fundamental to reality itself. It needs a soul." Gasped. Through her psionic senses, she could feel what the keeper meant. This wasn't metaphor or symbolism. The weapon would require a conscious being to sacrifice not just their life, but their entire existence. "Explain," demanded. The keeper gestured, and images appeared in the air around them. They showed the process, the terrible mathematics of it. A person would have to give up everything they were and ever had been. Their consciousness would be unraveled from the timeline itself. They would cease to exist in any moment, past, present, or future. No one would remember them. Their actions would be attributed to others or to chance. Every choice they had made, every person they had touched, all of it would be rewritten. "Complete erasure," said slowly, "as if they never existed at all." "Yes," the keeper said, "this is the price of cosmic balance. To save existence, something must be removed from existence. The precursors faced this same choice 3 billion years ago. Someone volunteered and their sacrifice stopped the threat of that era, but no one remembers who they were. Even I cannot fully recall them. The erasure is absolute. That's insane, Wu's voice came over the comm. His team had made it to the core and was listening. You're asking someone to give up everything, not just their future but their past too, to never have existed. I ask nothing, the Keeper replied. I merely offer the choice. The weapon can save your galaxy, but only if someone is willing to pay the price. The sacrifice must be voluntary, made with full understanding and acceptance. It must come from someone capable of choice. Had been silent, but now he spoke up. What happens if we refuse? The Keeper looked at him, and for a moment its form became that of an old soldier and tired. Then the void swarm continues. Your galaxy dies. Trillions of beings cease to exist. The difference is that their deaths will be remembered. The one who sacrifices will not even have that. Some choice, said bitterly. It is the only choice I can offer, the Keeper said. I do not make these rules. They are woven into the structure of reality itself. I am merely the one who carries them out, who witnesses each sacrifice and adds their name to a list that no one else will ever read. Moved closer to the Keeper. Her psionic senses were overwhelmed by what she felt from it. Pain, endless and deep. Grief for every soul it had watched give up their existence. Loneliness that spanned billions of years. You hate this, she said softly. You don't want to ask this of anyone. I do not, the Keeper agreed. But I am bound to offer it just as you are bound to choose. The crew stood in silence, each of them trying to process what they had learned. Somewhere out in the galaxy, the void swarm was still spreading. People were still dying. But here, in this impossible place, they had found a way to stop it. All it would cost was a soul. How long do we have to decide? Captain asked. Time moves differently here, the Keeper said. But in the galaxy outside, the swarm accelerates. You have perhaps 3 days before the coalition collapses completely. After that, even with the weapon, too much will be lost to save. 3 days to decide who would volunteer to never have existed. 3 days to choose who would save the galaxy and be forgotten forever. Looked at his crew, these people he had come to trust with his life. Now he would have to ask one of them to give up more than any person should ever have to give. The Keeper watched them with infinite patience, having seen this scene play out countless times before, with countless other species facing the same impossible choice. An ancient entity grants the key to save the galaxy, but it costs a soul. Part 3. They returned to the ship in silence. Captain gathered everyone in the common room. The weight of what they had learned pressed down on all of them. Outside the viewport, the crystalline walls of the station glowed softly, beautiful and terrible. We need to discuss this, said, though he hated every word. How did you discuss asking someone to erase themselves from existence? There's nothing to discuss, said Wu, his usual humor gone. What the Keeper is asking is impossible. It's not just death. Death at least leaves something behind. Memories impact meaning. This is asking someone to undo their entire life. Doctor pulled up data on her tablet. I've been analyzing the precursor records. They were a logical species, very calculating. When they faced this choice, they created a lottery system, random selection from their entire population. They felt it was the fairest way. Fair? Lieutenant Park shook his head. How is any of this fair? Song sat with her eyes closed, her psionic senses still overwhelmed by what she had felt in the Keeper's chamber. It's not about fairness, she said quietly. It's about balance. Reality has rules just like physics or mathematics. To create something, you need energy. To save existence on this scale, you need to remove existence. The equation must balance. I don't care about cosmic equations, said, his voice rising. We're talking about a person, someone with thoughts and feelings and people who love them. You can't just erase that. We don't have a choice, replied. The void swarm won't stop. We've seen what it does. Entire worlds gone, billions of people dead. If we do nothing, everyone dies anyway. At least this way, we save them. By sacrificing one person who never even gets remembered for it, stood up Packing. That's not heroism, that's just cruel. Listen to them argue, watching how each person dealt with the impossible situation differently. Approached it like a problem to solve. Wu rejected it emotionally, fought against the unfairness of it, tried to understand the deeper meaning. What if we used artificial intelligence? Wu suggested. The Keeper said it needs a conscious being capable of choice. Our ship's AI is conscious. It could volunteer. I already checked, said. The precursors tried that. Artificial consciousness doesn't work. It has to be an organic mind, something that evolved naturally. The sacrifice requires something the AI doesn't have. Call it a soul, call it whatever you want. But machines can't pay this price. What about cloning someone? Asked. We could grow a clone and maybe. The Keeper would know, interrupted. It exists outside time, it would see the trick. The sacrifice has to be real, it has to hurt, it has to matter. The room fell silent again. Each person avoided looking at the others, not wanting to see potential sacrifice in their faces. His communicator beeped. It was Ambassador from Coalition headquarters. He took the call privately in his quarters. His face on the screen looked drawn and exhausted. Captain, I need your status. Things are falling apart here. We found something, said carefully, but it comes with a price, a terrible price. He explained what the Keeper had told them, listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. How terrible? She finally asked. Complete erasure from existence. The volunteer would never have existed at all. No memories, no legacy, nothing. Closed her eyes. The swarm took the Rigel colonies this morning, 4 billion people. The delegation has withdrawn from the coalition. They're taking their fleets and fleeing to the Galactic Rim. 3 other species are talking about doing the same. Captain, we're out of time. Whatever you found, we need it now. Even at this cost. What cost is too high to save trillions? Asked, but her voice cracked. She wasn't as certain as her words suggested. After the call ended, sat alone in his quarters. He thought about his daughter lost to the swarm. He thought about all the people already gone, all the worlds turned to darkness. And he thought about the crew outside, young and brave and alive. A decision formed in his mind. He called the crew back together. I'll do it, he announced. I'll be the sacrifice. No, said immediately. It makes sense, continued. I've lived a full life. I've lost my family. I have nothing left to lose. My sacrifice would mean something. That's exactly why it can't be you, said, surprising everyone. She pulled up more precursor data. I found something else in their records. The sacrifice must come from someone with hope, someone who still believes in the future. The cosmic balance requires loss that matters. If someone bitter and broken volunteers, someone who has nothing to live for, it doesn't work. The equation needs someone choosing life but accepting death for others. Stared at her. That's insane. It's reality, replied. The precursors learned this the hard way. They sent their criminals first, people scheduled for execution anyway. The Keeper accepted them, but the weapon didn't work. It wasn't enough. The sacrifice has to come from someone who wants to live, who has reasons to stay. That's what makes it balance. So we need to sacrifice our most hopeful person, Wu asked. The one with the most to lose. The crew looked at each other, and slowly, horribly, they all realized who that was. Was the youngest among them. He was engaged to a girl back at Coalition headquarters, a communications officer he planned to marry when the war ended. He talked constantly about the future, about the home he wanted to build, about the children he hoped to have. Despite the war, despite the death all around them, still believed things could get better. No, said, reading their expressions. No, we'll find another way. There is no other way, said softly. I've been through all the data. The Keeper isn't lying. This is the only option. Then we'll find a different solution, insisted. Humanity has always found a way. We don't give up. We adapt, we innovate, we survive. Not this time, said. His voice was heavy with grief. I wish we could, but we can't. Reached out and took's hand. I'm sorry, she whispered. Pulled his hand away, anger flashing in his eyes. You're all acting like this is already decided. I haven't volunteered. I'm not going to volunteer. Find someone else. He left the room before anyone could respond. Over the next hours, the crew tried desperately to find an alternative. Wu tore through the ship's databases, looking for any technology that might replicate what the Keeper offered, pored over the precursor texts, hoping to find something she had missed, contacted Coalition Command, begging for ideas from their best scientists. Nothing worked. Meanwhile, messages kept coming from the galaxy outside. The Void Swarm was accelerating its consumption. 2 more star systems had gone dark. Refugee ships fled in all directions, overwhelming the remaining safe colonies. The Coalition military was in full retreat. On the second day, found sitting alone in the observation deck, staring at the stars. I'm scared, admitted. I've been scared since the war started, but this is different. This isn't just dying, it's being erased, like I never mattered at all. You matter now, said. That has to count for something. Does it? If no one remembers me, did I really exist? If my parents forget they had a son, if my never thinks of me, if everything I did is attributed to someone else or to random chance, what's left? Didn't have an answer. She sat beside him in silence. On the third day, received an emergency transmission from. Her face filled the screen, and behind her, could hear alarms blaring. The swarm just changed course, said. It's heading directly for the core worlds. Earth, Mars, the colonies. At current speed, it will reach us in 72 hours. Captain, I need that weapon now. Whatever the price is, we're out of time to pay it. Looked at his crew. They all heard the transmission. They all knew what it meant. The time for discussion was over. Someone had to choose. The question was, who would it be? An ancient entity grants the key to save the galaxy, but it costs a soul. Part 4. Lieutenant Park stood in his small quarters, looking at the photographs displayed on his wall. There was one of his parents back on Earth, standing in front of their home. Another showed him graduating from the Coalition Academy, his smile bright with hope. The largest photo was of his, taken just before he shipped out. She was laughing at something he had said, her eyes full of love and life. In 72 hours, the swarm would reach Earth. His parents would die. Everyone he had ever known would be consumed by darkness. Unless someone volunteered. Touched the photo of gently. He had planned their whole future together. A small house near the ocean, where they could hear the waves at night. 2 or 3 children who would grow up in a galaxy finally at peace. Growing old together, watching sunsets and telling stories about the war they had survived. All of that would disappear when he made his choice. Not just the future, but the past too. The memories of their first kiss, their promises to each other, the letters they had exchanged across light years. None of it would have happened. Would have different memories, a different love, maybe a different name for the man she would marry instead. The door chimed. Captain entered without waiting for permission. Don't try to stop me, said quietly. I'm not here to stop you, replied. He sat down heavily. I'm here because you shouldn't be alone right now. I've been thinking about humanity, said. He kept his eyes on the photos. About our history. We're not the strongest species. We don't live the longest or have the best technology. But we have one thing that makes us different. What's that? We're willing to die for each other. I studied Earth history in school. The soldier who throws himself on a grenade to save his squad. The firefighter who runs into a burning building. The doctor who stays with plague victims when everyone else flees. We do these things not because we're fearless, but because we decide some things are worth dying for. Felt his throat tighten. This is more than dying. I know it's worse, but isn't it also more? If I die normally, I get a funeral. People remember me. They tell stories. I become part of history. But this, finally turned to face his captain. This is choosing to save everyone while knowing no one will ever know I did it. That's the most human thing I can imagine. You don't have to do this, said, though he knew the words were hollow. Yes, I do. Not because there's no other choice, but because this is who I want to be. My whole life I wanted to matter. I wanted to make a difference. What bigger difference could there be than saving the galaxy, even if no one remembers? Wu appeared in the doorway. The engineer had tears running down his face. I've been running calculations for 3 days, he said, trying to find another way. There isn't one. The math is absolute. It has to be you, and I hate it. Song was behind him, her eyes red from crying. I can feel what you're feeling, she said too. The fear, the sadness, but also the resolve. You've already decided, haven't you? Nodded. I decided yesterday. I just needed time to accept it. Doctor was the last to arrive. She carried a data pad. I've been documenting everything, she said. Writing down who you are, what you've done, how you made this choice. I know the documentation will disappear too, but I need to do it anyway. Someone should record this, even if no one will read it. Thank you, said simply. They spent the next hours together, telling stories. Wanted to remember them all one last time. Wu talked about the first time they met, how it helped him fix the ship's reactor during a crisis. Recalled the time had stayed up all night helping her control her psionic abilities when they first manifested. Shared how it saved his life during a swarm attack, pulling him from a damaged section of the ship. These moments would all be rewritten. Someone else would have helped Wu, would have survived through different circumstances, would have learned control another way. The universe would adjust, filling in the gaps where had been. Recorded messages to his family, even knowing they would never be delivered. He wrote a letter too, pouring his heart onto the page. He did it all knowing it was pointless, but the act mattered to him. Love should be expressed, even if no one would ever receive it. On the final morning, dressed in his dress uniform, he looked at himself in the mirror one last time, memorizing his own face. Then he walked with his crew back to the keeper's chamber. The keeper was waiting in the center of the room, its form shifting and uncertain. When it looked at, it settled into the shape of an old man with kind eyes. You have chosen, the keeper said. It was not a question. I have, replied. His voice was steady, though his hands shook slightly. Do you understand what you are giving up? Not just your future, but your past. Every moment you have lived will be unmade. Your birth will not have happened. Your parents will have no son. Your love will have no memory of you. You will exist nowhere in the timeline, in no moment, in no heart. I understand. And you accept this freely, with full knowledge and of your own choice. I do. The keeper's form flickered with something that might have been sadness. Then I will ask you one final time, as I have asked all who came before you. Are you certain? Looked at his crew, these people who had become his family, who had taught him to be a leader, who had shown him that curiosity could save lives. Wu, who had made him laugh in the darkest times, who had helped him understand that fear was normal but didn't have to control you. I'm terrified, admitted. I don't want to stop existing. I want to live. I want to marry and have those children and grow old watching sunsets, but I want the galaxy to survive more. I want my parents to live even if they won't remember having a son. I want to find happiness even if it's with someone else. That's love, isn't it? Wanting good things for people even if you're not there to see it. That is exactly what it is, the keeper said softly. Turned to his crew one last time. Promise me something. When this is over, when the galaxy is saved, have a memorial service. Not for anyone specific, just a moment of silence for all the unknown heroes, for everyone who sacrificed in ways that couldn't be remembered. Will you do that? They all nodded, tears streaming down their faces. "Good, that's good," smiled, and it was genuine. "I'm ready." The keeper extended its hand and took it. Light began to surround him, not bright but somehow deep, as if all of space and time were folding in on that single point. Felt it starting, the unraveling of his existence. It didn't hurt physically, but there was an ache deeper than pain. The ache of letting go, of saying goodbye to everything. His crew watched as their friend began to fade. Not in space, but in their memories. They fought against it, trying desperately to hold onto who he was. Used all her psionic strength to anchor her memories of him. Recited facts about him, trying to keep him real through data. Wu shouted his name over and over as if sound could keep him present. But the erasure was absolute. Was the last one fighting. He stared at the young officer, memorizing every detail. The shape of his face, the sound of his voice, the way he stood with his shoulders back even when he was afraid. Had been a soldier his whole life. He had lost people before, but he had never lost someone like this, watching them disappear from reality itself. "It was an honor," Captain said. His voice was fading, becoming distant. Tell them it was worth it." "Tell who?" asked, and realized with horror that he was already forgetting. The light intensified. His form became transparent, then flickered like a bad transmission. His final expression was peaceful, almost happy. Then he was gone. Complete silence filled the chamber. Stood there feeling an overwhelming sense of loss without understanding why. Something important had just happened. Someone important had just... What? He couldn't remember. The keeper stood alone in the center of the room, holding a bundle of light in its hands. The light contained everything had been, all his memories and choices and moments of joy and fear. The keeper held it gently, reverently. "Thank you," the keeper whispered to the light. "I will remember you. I will carry your name forever, even if no one else can." Then the light dissolved, and the keeper held nothing. In its place, a small device appeared on the floor, the weapon that would stop the void swarm, the thing they had come here for, but couldn't remember why he felt so empty looking at it. Why did victory feel so much like loss? An ancient entity grants the key to save the galaxy, but it costs a soul. Part 5. Captain woke up in his quarters on the horizons, end with no memory of falling asleep. He sat up slowly, confused. The ship was still docked at the ancient station in the dead sector. He remembered arriving here, remembered exploring the strange crystalline corridors. But after that, everything was fuzzy. There were gaps in his memory, like missing pieces of a puzzle. He checked his data pad and found detailed weapon schematics. The designs were incredibly complex, exactly what they needed to stop the void swarm, but didn't remember downloading them. According to the file properties, Doctor had created them yesterday. That didn't make sense. Was an archaeologist, not a weapons engineer. Went to the bridge and found his crew already there, looking as confused as he felt. "Captain," said Wu from the engineering station, "I've been finding modifications to the ship systems, really clever stuff that improved our efficiency by 20%, but I don't remember making them. My logs say I did, but I have no memory of it." Doctor stared at her tablet screen. "I've written a complete analysis of precursor technology and how to weaponize it against the void swarm. It's brilliant work. I should be proud of it, but I feel like someone else wrote it, like I'm reading another person's thoughts." Song sat quietly, her eyes closed. The medic's psionic abilities were usually precise and controlled, but now she looked troubled. "I can feel an absence," she said softly. "Like there should be someone here who isn't, but I can't picture them or remember their name. It's like trying to remember a dream after you wake up." "I feel it too," admitted. "Something important happened here. Someone important was..." He trailed off, unable to finish the thought. They discovered the weapon in the cargo bay, fully assembled and ready for deployment. None of them remembered building it, but their logs showed they had worked on it for days. The crew checked and double-checked everything. The weapon would work. They knew it would work. But the knowledge felt borrowed, like they were following instructions from a voice they could no longer hear. The return journey to Coalition space took 2 weeks. During that time, found himself staring at empty spaces on the ship. The mess hall had a chair that nobody sat in, though there was no reason to avoid it. The duty roster had gaps that had been filled in with other people's names, but the original assignments had been erased. Even the ship's group photo, taken just before they left for the mission, seemed wrong. The crew was arranged oddly, like they had left space for someone who wasn't there. When they arrived at Coalition headquarters, Ambassador met them personally. She looked exhausted but hopeful. "You found something," she said, looking at the weapon data. "This is incredible. How did you figure this out?" "I don't know," admitted. "The knowledge was just there." The Coalition's best engineers studied the weapon design and confirmed it would work. They began mass production immediately. Within 3 weeks, the first units were ready for deployment at the front lines, where the Void Swarm continued its advance toward Earth. Commanded the mission himself. The Horizon's End led a small fleet carrying the new weapons into the heart of the swarm. The darkness that had seemed unstoppable pressed in around them, eating light and matter. Fire ordered. The weapons activated, sending out waves of energy that nobody fully understood. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The void swarm began to dissolve, not destroyed but reversed. Matter that had been consumed flowed back into normal space. Stars that had been dark flickered to life. Planets reformed from the darkness, their surfaces but intact. The swarm retreated, collapsing in on itself like water draining from a bath. Within hours, it had vanished completely, leaving behind a galaxy full of recovering systems and stunned survivors. They had won. The celebration across the Coalition was massive. Humanity was praised as the species that had saved everyone. Captain and his crew received medals and honors from grateful civilizations. Speeches were made about human ingenuity and courage. But felt hollow during the ceremony. He stood on a stage before millions of people, accepting awards for work he didn't remember doing. The other species leaders called humanity exceptional, brilliant, and selfless. All he could think about was the absence, the gap where something should be. During his acceptance speech, went off script. "We didn't do this alone," he said. The crowd quieted. "I don't know how to explain this, but I know someone helped us, someone important. I can't remember who they were, but I feel their absence. And I think they paid a terrible price for our victory." After the ceremony, approached him. She had been researching the precursor texts again, looking for answers to the gaps in their memories. "I found something," she said, pulling up an ancient document. "It's partially translated, but it talks about something called the unknown soldiers of eternity. Beings who sacrifice themselves in ways that erase them from memory. The text says their contributions are absolute, but so is their anonymity." "Why would anyone do that?" asked. "Because they chose to," said simply. The text describes it as the ultimate act of selflessness. To save others while knowing you'll never be thanked, never be remembered, never even be mourned because people won't know you're gone. Felt a chill run through him. "You think that's what happened to us, someone on our crew?" "I don't know, but look at this." Pulled up their crew manifest from before the mission and compared it to the current one. The numbers matched perfectly. Same crew size, same positions filled, but felt certain something was wrong with the list. Joined them, her expression troubled. "I've been meditating, trying to understand what I'm sensing. It's not just an absence, it's a sacrifice. Someone chose this. I can feel their emotions even if I can't see them. Fear, sadness, but also love, so much love. They loved us, loved the galaxy, loved life itself, and they gave it all up." The 3 of them stood in silence, trying to honor something they couldn't remember. Over the following weeks, as the galaxy rebuilt, noticed something strange about humanity's reputation. Other species started telling stories about human sacrifice, about soldiers who gave up everything for others. These stories were old from Earth's history, but they spread through the coalition like wildfire. The idea of sacrificing yourself for others, of choosing courage in the face of fear, became associated with being human. Other species studied humanity's history and culture, trying to understand what made humans willing to do these things. Some started emulating it, creating their own traditions of honor and sacrifice. Humanity became known not for their weapons or technology, but for their heart, for their stubborn insistence that some things were worth dying for, and that protecting others mattered more than protecting yourself. Didn't know if this reputation was earned or if it came from somewhere else, from the shadow of someone who chose to be forgotten. But he embraced it anyway. 6 months after the Void Swarm's defeat, organized a special memorial service. He invited all the crew from the Horizon's End, along with representatives from every coalition species. They gathered in a garden on Earth, under an open sky with stars visible above, had set up a single empty chair in the center of the gathering. "We're here to honor someone," began. "I don't know their name, I can't picture their face, but I know they existed, I know they mattered, and I know they gave up everything, including our memory of them, to save us all." He paused, looking at the empty chair. "This is for all the unknown heroes, the ones who sacrificed in ways that couldn't be remembered, the ones who chose to fade from history so that history could continue. We can't thank them by name, we can't tell their stories, but we can acknowledge that they existed, that their choice had meaning, and that somewhere in the universe their sacrifice is recorded." The gathering observed a minute of silence. During that silence felt something shift in the cosmos. A presence, distant and fading, acknowledging their memorial. It wasn't the person who had been erased. They were truly gone, but something else, something old and sad, witnessed their remembrance. After the ceremony, as people left, Wu approached. "Do you think they knew?" Wu asked. "Whoever it was, do you think they knew we'd do this, even though we can't remember them?" "I hope so," replied. "I hope somewhere, somehow, it mattered to them that we tried." Years passed. The galaxy continued to recover and grow. The coalition became stronger than ever, united by their shared survival. Humanity's role in saving everyone became legend, though the details remained mysteriously vague. Doctor, now elderly and renowned, made one final trip to the Keeper's station in the Dead Sector. She went alone, driven by a curiosity she couldn't quite name. The Keeper met her in the central chamber, appearing as her younger self. "Why did I come here?" asked. "I don't remember deciding to make this trip." "Because part of you remembers," the Keeper replied. "Not consciously, but deeper, in the place where souls recognize truth." "Did someone from my crew sacrifice themselves?" "Yes." "Can you tell me who?" The Keeper was quiet for a long moment. "I am the only one who remembers. I carry all their names, all their faces, all their final moments. It is my burden and my purpose, but I cannot share those memories. To do so would undo the sacrifice." "Was it worth it?" asked. "For them, I mean. Did they think it was worth giving up everything?" The Keeper looked out at the galaxy beyond the station, at the trillions of beings living and loving and dreaming, at the children playing on worlds that would have been destroyed, at the stars that would have gone dark but now burned bright. "They chose to believe it was worth it," the Keeper said. "They made that choice with full knowledge of the cost. Who am I to question a soul that brave?" Felt tears on her cheeks without knowing why. "Thank you," she said, "for remembering them. It is all I can do." When returned to Earth, she wrote her final paper. In it, she theorized that the greatest heroes were not those who were celebrated, but those who acted without any expectation of reward or recognition. She wrote about the nobility of sacrifice made in secret, the courage required to choose erasure over existence. The paper became one of the most influential philosophical works in human history. It shaped how humanity thought about heroism and sacrifice for generations. And somewhere in the dead sector, in a chamber outside of time, the keeper of threshold stood before a wall covered in names that no one else could read. At the bottom of a list billions of years long, one name was carved in letters of light. The keeper placed a hand on that name and whispered, "You were human," and that was enough. In the galaxy beyond, life continued. People lived and died, loved and lost, struggled and triumphed. They went about their lives never knowing that their existence had been purchased with a price beyond measurement. But that was exactly how it was meant to be. Some sacrifices are too great to be remembered. They can only be felt in the quiet moments when someone stops and wonders why they're grateful to be alive. In those moments, the echo of the unknown soldiers touches the present, brief and wordless. And in those moments, the sacrifice is honored in the only way it can be. By the simple act of living, of choosing hope, of being worth saving. That is humanity's gift. Not that they are perfect, but that they believe some things are worth dying for, and some things are even worth never having existed for. The galaxy lives on, full of countless species and infinite possibilities. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, an empty chair waits in eternal silence, honored by hearts that cannot remember why they ache when they look at it, but know that it matters. That it will always matter. Forever.